definitely should have brought some water, but I'll just get some water later because we are now live. Welcome everybody back to episode 3 of season 4, the Level Up Your Wealth podcast. We talk about the gaming industry from a business perspective. One of your hosts, Marcus Howard, joined by Mario. Say hello, Mario, to all the folks online.
What's going on? Hope all is well. Beautiful day in Jacksonville. It rained this morning, but clear like Florida. Rains for an hour, then nothing happens 2 hours later. So I'm happy to be here. Happy to meet the professor. So, Stephen, introduce yourself.
Hey, glad to be here, guys. So, yeah, I'm Professor Stephen here in Deinhardt the Fourth. Yeah, I'm a professor over at the University of Tampa. And then I've got a Wisconsin-based business called Wonderfilled. I don't know, I've been making games for a long time, so I imagine maybe that's why I'm here. And, in recent years, they've kind of turned into like theme parks and all kinds of crazy stuff.
So before we jump into that, again, it's a tradition for us on our episodes. We have a competitive match for the guests and against one of the hosts. So if you don't mind, if you'll join into Rock, Paper, Scissors, rps.gg. Everyone who's joining us live, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your support, continued support in season 4. Let us know in the chat who you think is going to win this match. Is it going to be Mario or the professor himself?
I've been studying up.
All right. So
this is fun. All right. So I click direct match.
Direct match.
Okay.
I think it's quick match.
Sorry, quick match. Thank you, Mario. It's been a long day.
No, that's all right.
So quick match will match up with whoever's in the system. Right now it's just Mario in the system and you. So here we go.
Okay.
Screen share. Again, let us know in the chat who you voting for, who you got your money on, your virtual currencies, if you will.
Okay. Now it's best out of 10 though. So
right.
Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited.
Right, you know.
It's like you have your students and their first test they get an A, they're all excited, and it's all downhill after that.
No, I've been studying these ratios recently.
Okay. Of course, as a professor, you should.
I'm trying to see. Well, you think that it's a 30-30-30 thing, but it's not apparently. So
now, so
even as you're playing, you'll see your play history above your cards, beneath your cards on your screen, and then above his cards, you'll see his play history.
I've never seen this platform before. This is great.
Yeah. So I use this for new clients that come in. So I have my own investment firm, and we do this to kind of gauge their risk tolerance because, of course, because when you're investing, if you're on a win streak, you might be more aggressive, you might be more conservative, and we can kind of figure that out with the rock, scissors, papers. On the other end, if the market's going down, you're on a losing streak. We're able to kind of really see, how your mind flows. Are you more aggressive to make your money back quicker? Are you more just kind of even keeled, keep it how it is? Or are you more conservative just to kind of keep what you have? So we actually use this in practice. So,
yeah, I mean, I know a lot of companies are now using games as sort of psychological tests to, in interviewing processes and things like this. I do awful in all of them. I've always been bad at playing games, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. That's why, like in football, they made me the defensive tackle. They're like, you just stand there.
Well, that's interesting. You said that. Like, so you create games, but you're not the best at playing games. So when you create games, do you create games that you want to play, or you create games that you think might be good for the masses?
Oh, no, I make games for other people. For me, it's a service. I provide a service for others because I know how to make great games. So I try to find players to serve and design experiences for them. They're generally not for me. In some ways, it's sort of the opposite of what a lot of, I guess, core gamers would think of their dream job. Oh, I get to make games and play them. Well, I enjoy playing my games. But for me, it's most fun when I see other players playing my games and them engaged with them. And when I see them enjoying themselves, that's when I know I did my job.
Okay. All right. That long soliloquy. So keep on talking. So just keep on with it. There you go.
So you can rack up some
Yeah,
more
yeah,
points.
right. Sitting here, I just got to keep clicking. So I got no strategy here. Like I'm not even being tactical. Like
Yeah.
it was there for a second.
I spoke at a elementary school for Black History Month.
Oh, fun.
We did Q&A with the kids and like, so how many video games do you play? I say, well, actually, because I work in the gaming industry, I rarely play video games.
Yeah, right. Well, I remember that when that occurred to me as a student, I was in grad school at the time, and that was sort of the first time I really got serious about studying games. And I was working in electronic arts. Yes. And, you win. Congratulations. So, I went into this guy's office and, just started kind of gushing about the latest, greatest games. And he sort of was like, yeah, kid, it's in the pile. It's in the pile. It's in the pile. And, at the time I sort of didn't get it. But I tell people these days, unless it's for research or with my kids, I tend to play my own games a lot for a long period of time, but it's work, right? So it's a sort of a different thing. So, when I was working on Mario Kart, I'd get home and my kid would be like, let's play Mario Kart 8. I'd be like, oh my God, no. I've been doing this all day. Like, can we talk about plumbing? I mean, actual plumbing or anything else. So it's it's a strange thing, so it's my business, like which you understand, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you get into it, and when you're doing competitive analysis, when you're maybe kind of evaluating a company, which I guess is competitive analysis, or maybe trying to dive deep into a product or into a genre for a client, you go deep down that and do that research. Our research is playing games, right? I mean, there's other parts to it, but it's a different thing. Like I don't have a list of games that you go to the store to pick up. I hear about the latest releases. I try to sort of pay attention to what's happening like in the market right now. But yeah, I'm so busy thinking about, the future that I'm focused on the market, 18 to 36 months from now, and even further out than that.
So Dr. Deinhardt, you got to give us a, not maybe the chronological order, but discography of all the games that you have helped create.
Oh, let's see. So actually, I had one of my mentors. I sort of started doing this same thing to him the other day. This guy, Lewis Castle. He made a company called Westwood back in the day, Zynga, all kinds of stuff. So
I remember Zynga.
I was like, hey, did you ever work on any D&D games, Lou? He's like, well, here's a few from the top of my head. I'm like, damn. So I mean, I guess I'll go with big games, like games that you might know. So my first AAA game was Constantine. I made it Warner Brothers, back in like 2004 or something like that. When I was there at Warner Brothers, I worked on all kinds of AAA games like The Matrix Online, The Matrix Reloaded, Constantine, some Scooby-Doo games, like a Harry Potter game. I'm trying to remember what other games were in development then. I don't know. Because I was assisting these producers at Warner Brothers, so it's just like moving around the studios, just working on all of this stuff. And for me, it was awesome because I had gone from like zero to hero in the matter of a couple of months. I had moved to LA. I didn't have any connections. I'm from the Midwest. I made a card. I just like went to actually to E3. Someone gave me a pass because I volunteered for another event. And so me and my friends just went and knocked and basically crashed every VIP room we could find. This one guy, Jason Hall, who was behind, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the studio. Sorry, Jace, if you're seeing this. But they're now Warner Brothers Games. It was this other game studio that he was at. And so he had recently taken it over, and I gave him my card and I said, hey, I'd like to work with you. And 3 months later, they called me onto the lot, and, it wasn't great work. They didn't pay me. I went there 3 days a week on the bus. And in LA, taking the bus is an experience. Basically from South Central up to Burbank, crazy stuff. But
plus
you
the
know,
traffic too, right?
what's that?
I said plus the traffic doesn't hurt either, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So
I did that one time. I took the bus, and you're right, it's an experience.
It is, right? So let's see. That was just like my first tip, and then after that, let's see. I went to Electronic Arts. I worked on the Battle for Middle Earth 2. Helped out with some Command and Conquer Red Alert stuff. I think Red Alert 3 was released from that time, but I don't think the Command and Conquer game I was working on or I helped with ever was released. And then when I kind of got out of that, and those were all basically, graduate school internships. My first big title was called, or is called, Company of Heroes. It was released on mobile this past year, which is kind of crazy for a game I made 15 years ago that people are still playing it. And it really is basically the same game. It's just that we had designed it for like high-end PCs back in the day, and now it works great on mobile devices, right? Also helped on the Dawn of War games when I was up there. I'm trying to think if we had anything else at Relic. That was about it. After I left Relic, I worked on, Fear 3. Trying to.
It's a great game.
Oh, thanks. Oh, right. Prey. Did you play Prey?
I didn't play Prey, but I played Fear 3. The little girl with the teddy bear. She's terrifying. Right. She's terrifying.
My baby.
Yeah, you hear the baby crying. You're like, all right, people are gonna start dying.
No, almost scary, dude. I used to have to do some witchcraft to get that scary little lady in my head, but yeah, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. So yeah, that's that. I mean, I don't even like to talk about where that game picked up. It was pretty crazy. I was brought into that studio as a doctor. They had basically already created the game, thought it was Fear 2, but then this merger happened with Warner Brothers, and I almost remember the name of the studio now. I forgot. And they said, well, hey guys, by the way, that Fear 2 you just made, that's actually now Fear 3. And Fear 2 is already done. And everyone at the studio was like, oh God. So they didn't want to touch anything. So they invited me in to sort of try to pick it apart and make it into something they could be proud of for Fear 3. So, and then, so Prey was an interesting one. Now, it came out in 2017, I think. But I worked on it ages before that, almost as a totally different game. This crazy stuff happened, aggressive takeovers, blah, blah, blah. But eventually the game came out. I'm not sure if any of my work remains in it, but I did some story development on it. And then, in the past couple of years, my games have been like theme parks. So Super Nintendo World is probably the biggest of them. Mario Kart's probably my pride and joy. So, and the thing is, I tell people it's fun for me because all those things I used to do for, core gamers on screens, I now make in parks really for everyone. And, it's sort of the Wreck-It Ralph dream. And then, since then I've worked on a bunch of other games, my own game and theme park, which is called Giant Lands, which is sort of like a core role-playing game that I made with some of my boyhood idols that's intended for live action role play.
So we've got some folks joining us in the chat. We've got Arnaud saying ex-Relic people in the house.
Oh, hey, Arnaud.
And then Josh Nelson. I think you recently joined as an advisor for his team.
Yeah, Josh.
Yep, Battle Racing.
Yeah.
Oh, for a second there, I thought there were two Josh Nelsons. So it's like
same Josh Nelson.
That's Josh Nielsen, not Nelson.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. That's cool. So you create Mario Kart, and he's bringing Mario Kart to life. So it all works out. It all works out.
Yeah.
That's cool. So talk about Mario Kart specifically, because I'm a huge Mario Kart fan. We still play Mario Kart today on our Switch. So like, how was that process? How long did it take to develop the game? And kind of walk us through that whole process.
I mean, I was actually just looking at some of the original concepts. I'm not sure how they were ever leaked, but they were developed by one of my associates there at NBC, Devin. I won't call Devin out too much because he's sort of secretive, quiet guy. But if you ever go on any ride at Universal, he's basically programmed all of them. And so he spent time making up these ideas, mostly using 3D Studio Max, really about 12 years before it ever opened as a land in Japan. So now, as we're looking at an opening of the same land or similar land, at least in Orlando this next year, I mean, it's, I want to say like a 15-year process from concept.
15 years. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I saw like the snippets on YouTube, it looks so cool though. I mean, it looks very cool, but 15, that's a long time.
It is a long time. So, and I wasn't part of the process that whole time by any means. I began on that project in 2017, I believe. And, you know, really was on it for only about a year and a half or a year. And a year, and it was a year. And then I went and started my own company and did this other stuff. So by the time I got there, it's sort of the same thing. Like, I'm called in as the game doctor a lot. You know, people either decide something isn't enough of a game, or that they have a game that needs to be more meaningful. And so they made a new team and called me in along with some Electronic Arts guys and all these other folks to really make sure they were hitting the mark with the park, so that it would resonate with gamers, because they didn't have a lot of experience making, you know, interactive experiences with interactive narratives, right? And that's sort of how it kind of took off at Universal. There are these interactives in the Wizarding World that you do with like wands, and this team behind them made them, and they kind of took off and won all these awards. And so suddenly the hot thing in theme parks is to try to recreate what we've been doing in games for a number of years. But they're sort of behind the curve. So, you know, kart battle racing, you know, is the hot thing. You know, I think we just won an award this year for it. It keeps taking in awards. It's a really interesting experience in the sense that it really combines traditional kind of theme park dark ride kind of stuff. If you've ever gone on like any theme park dark ride and you're in sort of a ride vehicle and there's maybe like an animatronic and lights and flashing as you're kind of going through the course. So it's basically like that, except you are in a cart with 3 other players. You have a headset on, so that you can actually see Mario in front of you. And it's actually sort of this like blended experience. We call it mixed reality, right? So there's like screens and screens and screens and practical, like real stuff, like the real Piranha Plant. But you'll see the real Piranha Plant along with projections on the wall, screens, and you'll be wearing an augmented reality visor. So you'll see like digital characters on top of that environment that you're interacting with your cart as you're moving through it. Now, one of the common complaints is it doesn't go that fast. You know, part of that is safety. Part of it is just the sort of experience that we were trying to tune for. You know, we create the illusion of speed, but you know, first and foremost in park experiences, you know, safety is always sort of
safety first.
Yeah, is always what. I mean, I never thought I'd just be so into safety, dude, until I took this OSHA course when I was there. I was like, wow, I'm really into being safe. I had no idea.
Nice.
I just sort of wanted to.
OSHA.
Do you have the right equipment for that? Are you sure that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Since some of that is mixed reality and digital, is there any opportunity to do updates to the experience?
Well, that's actually one of the very exciting things about the experience itself is it is dynamic, right? So, and it's essentially run by a game engine, right? Now it's, you know, a smart kind of system and it's got servers and all this crazy stuff. But yeah, so if next time you show up, it's going to remember you. If you use the blue shell, it'll remember that you had the blue shell last time. If you've you know, done these different achievements, it'll recall that you're there. And so yeah, it can actually serve up different content to you than all the other riders on your vehicle. So you might have a unique experience compared to the other 3 people that are sharing it with you, because it's all sort of instanced as a video game on top of, you know, a living experience, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So it sounds like it's AI involved. So like, so if I have the game second, third, fourth time, is it going to be more challenging for me, or is it just a different type of ride?
I mean, we certainly like to think it's going to be more challenging and more visceral. But, you know, mostly you'll get additional content, you know, Easter eggs, you know, unlocked galore. and just be able to maintain your level of achievement. So it's not like every time you get on the ride you have to start over. You would begin at a rank and have certain abilities based on things you did in other places in the land. And that's sort of the fun part about it, is that when you're off in Super Nintendo world, although it's just a land, often one part of this 10-acre section doing one activity, let's say you get a key or you get some golden coins, when you go over and do some other activities in different parts of the park, you can utilize those things. So it's all like done with wearables. And yeah, there is some AI involved, so to speak. Yeah, the idea is to make I think of esports, really. I mean, we got you guys here, and for me, it is the future of esports. So we're inviting players into an arena where they're engaging in real world activities that can be watched by people that might not want to go punch the block. They might not want to be the best at Mario Kart, but man, they get excited watching those players that are good at doing it, right? And so if you're one of those people and you like to be rewarded, there's systems for it in there. And so your performance becomes like this show of the park itself. So I really do think it's the future of esports. And even like, other parks I've developed since, right now we've got, I've noticed actually just this week, people playing Dungeons and Dragons live on stage in Madison Square Garden.
What?
Yeah, right. Yeah, wait, what? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I should have seen that one coming, but now I see people popping it up. They're like, "Oh, it's an immersive D&D dining experience," but that people are doing this on stage, and that's exactly it. Though it's the players now are becoming more like actors, right? And people want to go see these people play the game rather than to play the game themselves, as you would do with any spectator sport.
And what's going on, Alexander and Gerard, that hopped into the chat as well. So from a theme park standpoint, like the theme park most people think about is Disney, and just from like a stock standpoint, their stock has not been the best because people aren't going to theme parks like they used to. So what are some things that that people like you are doing, creating games to bring people back from the couch back to the theme parks?
Well, I appreciate that, and I'd certainly like to take all that credit. But actually, I think we all know that we're really tired of sitting around in our house, right, doing Zoom calls. So everyone is sort of as hungry to go out. So the sector is kind of exploding right now. But yeah, the idea is that, as we all have, or a lot of us have children these days that are sucked into this stuff all the time, we can see how hard it is to get them away from these devices, to get them offline, get them engaging with real people that they can see and touch. And, the experiences they have are so visceral, I sort of understand it. And yeah, the way to get them off of that is to provide them something just as, if not more visceral, in the location, right? In the park, in the stadium. So that they say, hey, let's go do that. That's something we can't do in the home. And that was always sort of a message even early on when I was working on Super Nintendo World. Hey, if we don't offer something that's at least as good as what they're getting on the console as home, there's no way they're going to come do this. It has to be something else over and above it, right?
Yeah, I say that to folks when I work in the space on esports. It's like some of our contemporaries, our peers, are shocked that there is low foot traffic in some of these kind of LAN centers. And when I say all the time, it's like, if you can sit at home from the comfort of your home for free and play a game for free and eat your own food, why would you spend time and money to go to another place where you have to pay for that same luxury? But to your point, and I think one of the reasons that arcades were popular many years ago, and some of them still are, is that arcades offered something you couldn't get at home. And what you're saying is that the spaces you're designing are doing some of those, providing some of those same unique, only on-site experiences.
Yeah, that's the idea. And I honestly think a big part that's starting to bring at least older audiences out, not so much the kids, but is just being around other people. Because we kind of miss that, how normal it used to be. And now it seems to be a real challenge, right?
Yeah. Now, COVID definitely slowed things down from a socialization standpoint. So you are definitely right about that. What's the favorite game that you made? I know we've talked about Mario Kart, but like if you look at all the games that you have created and helped create and doctored up to make better, what do you think is the favorite one that you've made?
It's got to be Company of Heroes. I'm just a Company of Heroes junkie. Like, I still want to make more Company of Heroes. I love to play it. I'm ashamed when I open up Steam and seeing how many hours I've spent playing my own game after it was released. And again, I'm not the best at it. I'll get on there and go competitive ranked matches against these 14-year-olds, and I'm like, man, you suck. Get off of this. I hate this game, yo.
That's funny.
So you have to balance some of that time with your teaching, right? You also teach over at University of Tampa. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love teaching. So I've taught for a number of years. Actually, that's why I went to grad school. I was in Detroit teaching at this school. But the reason they let me teach there is because I had these new sort of skills. At the time it was web development. I was doing all this interactive stuff. And so they let me teach that stuff while I was freelancing. I was like maybe 20, 22, I don't remember, 24 maybe. And
Wayne State? Was it Wayne State in Detroit?
No, I was close to Wayne State. So I was at a place called the College for Creative Studies, just around the street from the Detroit Institute of the Arts. And just a small art school. It's gotten a lot bigger there. At the time, it was called the College for Creative Studies. And I thought, hey, this is great. I really love teaching, so I should get a terminal degree so I can be a professor. So that's why I went out to LA. But then I sort of got seduced by, trying to become an entertainer and professional storyteller and all that. So, I'm glad I jumped into it. But it's something that I love to do, mostly in a lot of ways, because the only reason I exist is because of teachers that helped me. I was lucky. My parents were very encouraging. They don't really get what I do, but they try to push me to be who I am as a kid, and I guess even as an adult to some extent. Going out there and having teachers in public schools that said, hey, maybe you want to pay attention to this. I mean, I used to get pretty weird. I guess I always thought of myself as a pretty weird guy. I'm on the outside of a lot of stuff and, intermingle between a lot of different groups of people. I was writing this weird paper one time, and this extremely smart woman was like, hey, other people don't think about stuff like this. Have you ever thought about thinking about it more? And just that was like, wow, really? You think my idea is special? And that's all it takes. So I believe in the human being, right? I believe we're all creative, capable, beautiful creatures, right? So not everyone gets that stuff, right? Not everyone gets encouragement. We don't all always get the encouragement we need. And so I like being there to help people kind of advance and to learn and to express themselves. And yeah, it helps me as well. I become better at expressing myself, and I can talk about my trade more easily. So, and then I get onto stuff like this too, and I'm like, oh gosh, no big deal. Sometimes I have to talk for 2 to 4 hours and keep people relatively entertained. I'm sure my students will say sometimes it's boring babble, but I generally know that a lot of them advance, and that's what's really neat for me. So yeah, I'm teaching game design right now, 3D printing, and 2D animation.
Yeah. And Todd hopped in the chat. Todd, what's going on? All right, so 2 questions. Number one, younger entrepreneurs, especially maybe your students, right? They get out of college and it's all about, in their eyes, entrepreneurship and kind of having their own creation, either by studio, doing things on YouTube. And you have your own business, but you also have a full-time job teaching. So talk about the juggling act between having your own business, running that, and then also being a full-time professor as well.
It's really challenging. I mean, in all kinds of ways, but it's something that I leaned into. And one reason I leaned into it is because it makes me not have to worry as much about the market and following the market and catering to the market. So I was able to sort of slow down a little bit. Being a teacher doesn't pay a lot, but it pays enough for my rent, right? And I generally pay for, a few other things with it. So I don't have to sell as much. And I can really think about what I'm doing. I just celebrated 6 years. I've been a teacher again for 2 years. And yeah, in that time, I've been able to slow down and rethink about my business. And it's helped me a lot. So particularly with doing something like I'm doing now, I mean, I started as a theme park project that turned into a very serious kind of core tabletop RPG, which I'm doubling down on because I love that I've been able to create that with one of my boyhood idols, this guy, James M. Ward, who just passed away last month. And so I feel really fortunate that I was able to sort of connect and revive those feelings I had from when I was a little kid. I'm not sure how I got so into tabletop RPGs when I was in grade school, but they were really a lifesaver. Me and my, I talk about the multicolored nerd table I used to sit at. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And, we weren't hanging out with the other kids, but, I showed up there with this monster manual and we just go to town and we had so much fun. And I tell people, I think it's why maybe one reason I can achieve things that are seemingly hard for other people sometimes, because the RPG really helped me to think about situations and taking on roles and solving these problems and stepping out of myself. Right. So it's something that goes way back for me, and being able to slow down and really focus on this is really a blessing. And I happen to work at a place that encourages it. So it's actually part of my job to have a practice.
Really?
And my practice is working on my game Giantlands.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So second question, you talked about 3D printing. It's a quasi push to have more 3D printed houses, so to make things more affordable, houses can go up quicker as we definitely have a shortage of houses. What are your thoughts about 3D printing houses? Do you think that's a fad, or do you think that's something that's going to catch on and really kind of help the housing crisis that we have?
Yeah, 3D printing is so crazy. I mean, the more and more I get into it, it's such a massive paradigm shift. I don't think your average Joe really gets how impactful it is. It's sort of beyond a new industrial revolution. So yes, I love 3D printed houses. I'd like to be the professor that lives in a 3D printed house.
You're saving a ton of money that way.
They just tore down the first 3D printed house they popped up. Actually, I think it was in Minnesota not too long ago. Just like a couple.
Wait, said they tore it down, so they built it. Was it like an experiment to see if it worked?
Yeah, it wasn't safe. Yeah, it was an experiment. So it just proved not to be a safe structure. So they decided to tear it down. But I grew up loving mail order homes from the Montgomery Ward catalogs that a lot of people lived in the Midwest. That were 100 years old or whatever it is when we were in them. So I'd really like to think that there's a neat possibility for more affordable homes that maybe are more customizable as well. You can do a lot with 3D printing a space that you might not otherwise be able to do with traditional fabrication. So yeah, I think there's a huge future in 3D printed facilities and dwellings.
How long, if I can circle back, and then what's going on, Tony, as he hopped in the chat, how long do you think it's going to be mass adoption for 3D printing? You think we're 10 years away, we're 30 years away? How long do you think the adoption is?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the problem with the illusion of, or I won't say it's illusion, but part of the problem with how 3D printing has been marketed towards us all. One day we're going to have it in our home. The truth is, and I tell this to my students a lot too, that it's still in the realm of this sort of group that's nerdy enough to get into it. And as much as I like to think my mom will go print a spoon, not going to happen, right? But there might be a guy down the street who's, printed pipes or 3D, printed pipes or spoons or household goods, right? And it's a lot more accessible. And maybe she has some particular constraints from her own sort of body, or maybe the household has certain sizes associated with it, or maybe it's a specific fork. Man, I really need another one of these forks. Well, if you have the right sort of 3D printing facility and materials on hand, you can sort of recreate stuff, whether it's just take a 3D scan of that thing and then print it with whatever filament you have on hand. It gets really crazy pretty quick. So it's all relatively new still in terms of its impact on the industries or various industries, but we're starting to see it in like automotive, manufacturing, fashion, and generally anywhere that you're sort of prototyping physical goods. And it's a lot quicker, although we have the ability to get stuff relatively quickly. We're dealing with a lot of shortages in COVID. Well, if you understood, or if we had a little more advancement with 3D printing, that wouldn't be such a worry, because those sorts of goods can be created much more closer to a region on site, and you don't have those sorts of problems that come from supply chain issues.
That's true.
So on demand.
So yeah, I mean, I think that in another 10 years, it'll be a lot more pervasive. In 20 years, it'll be a full part of most manufacturing and development processes, to the point we won't even think about it anymore. It's just, I mean, I can't believe every time you turn around, you go to bed and wake up, and the technology has just taken another leap. Like these printers that we're talking about, I think they'll start arriving towards the end of the year. They're like multicolor printers you can do in your home. Can you imagine if you could print multicolor action figures in your house? Now, I understand that's not practical for everyone. But man, it would be exciting. So, the stuff that is around the corner is really neat. So yeah, I expect the sector to keep sort of flying. But, it's just like a lot of nerdy things. I don't think it'll reach full adoption. It's not a mobile phone. It's the same thing with, VR headsets and all that. It's, there's a certain group that will pay attention to it. Actually, it's the same thing I tell people about AI. Everyone's, oh gosh, AI is going to make it so everyone can do everything. Well, that's a really nice thought. I sort of wish everyone would. Maybe we'd live in a better world, right? If everyone chose to authentically express themselves. But the truth is, a lot of people won't do it. We could talk about reasons why people don't do things, but that's not important. They won't. So that group that sort of pays attention to it and works in it, they're going to be the ones that are using it for stuff. I use it for things. It's really neat, but I'll tell you, it can't do my work. It's neat for generating assets. It's neat for kind of, blending up ideas and seeing what comes out the other side, but none of it's ready to go to market. So you still need a human being in there. I tell people it's sort of like back in the day when I started working in Photoshop in the 90s, and people would be like, oh, well, but you made that picture with a computer, right? Like, yeah, of course I did. Like, what, you think how else am I going to make a picture like that? Yeah. So it's, for me, the AI, the LLMs, the neural networks that we're dealing with now are really just sort of like new digital brushes.
So to kind of take a step further, so you actually use AI in your business now, and then, I mean, you don't have to get proprietary, but like, how does that help you improve the business?
Oh, I don't know if it does. My fans, I'll say, don't like it at all. But I only use it for promotional materials. And so for me, I'm sort of a one-man shop. I scale according to the needs of the products I'm developing. I have a lot of contractors, but I do most of it myself. So yeah, today I was able to generate, was it today and yesterday, 3 or 4 ads that are like 8K resolution that are frankly some of the best graphics I've generated in my life. And yeah, previously without those tools, it would have taken me a long time to realize that, and maybe working with a lot more people. I would rather pay those people. I'd rather be working in a big team, but I'm small time right now and I don't have the budget for it. So it's really a godsend. And I tell people my real goal within a year, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to make materials that look just as good as anything that comes out of a Disney production facility, but it'll cost me next to nothing compared to what they're delivering it for.
Right. When because I even use AI in my investment firm, like kind of, you can't predict the market, but like what trends are going to happen. And I say, I don't think AI is going to take over a person's job, but what might, stop you from going in your job is another person that uses AI better than you. And I think it's more as a compliment, not as a taking over of a position.
Yeah, it's like an accountant with Excel.
And pivot tables, right? yeah.
We want to make sure we get some questions answered. If anybody is joining us live, have any questions for Mario for financial literacy or Professor Deinhardt for all of the things that he does, 3D printing and animation and design. So let us know in the chat. While we're waiting on that, Steven, have you seen the new X-Men show on Disney Plus?
I have not watched. I don't have a Disney Plus subscription right now. I can't. I went through that thing, we're all pinched right now. I was like, look, we only need like 2, okay, maybe 3 subscriptions. But yeah, Disney Plus fell off. So no, I have not seen it.
Okay.
How do you feel?
Did you catch up on it at all?
Yeah, I binged on Sunday. Great. And I watched it with my daughter, my wife. I mean, she's not really a cartoon person. I mean, but my daughter. But she loved it, man. She was mad too because of course, like it's not like a show. You just keep on going. It's week by week. So she's like, that's it. Yeah. That's it. I said, well, we can wait till next week. So it's cool stuff.
Wednesdays, the episode 5 is heavy. You're just no spoilers. It's heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy.
It is okay.
Yeah, I'm so jaded on the Marvel stuff, man. I grew up on it, right? My dad was like, he went through all these garage sales in the 70s. So like we had them all. I mean, they're in junky condition, but we had them all. So I'm amazed to see how Disney sort of wrecked the market, to be honest. Like, no, really, these books, like, you can get the first appearance of Thor. I saw it for sale in a shop I can't believe how good this book looked. It's $2,500.
Wow.
Journey into Mystery 83. I swear when I was a kid, that was like an $80,000 book.
Wow.
Right?
And so why do you think the cost, that's a dramatic, I wish I would have shorted that. I made me some money, I guess, then. But why the dramatic drop, you think?
Well, it's a few things. Number one, they've alienated their core fan base, so the core fan base just doesn't care anymore. They've also not used a lot of the original canon. So the story of the origin of Thor and Journey to Mystery 83 has nothing to do with what the MCU is. So I don't know why they didn't go with it. I mean, it's sort of a cool story. This sort of guy with a disability finds Thor's hammer and turns into Thor, not Thor the god, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I think, a little bit more of a compelling story. So yeah, they've managed to alienate, the fan base so much that the real collectors have left the market. And so now it's filled up with a lot of investors and speculators. So they're interested in key issues and whatever Marvel has next on the slate, so that, they can hypervaluate it and flip it before the next movie is released and, the price of those comes crashing down.
Man, that's interesting. So to kind of piggyback, because I know you say you doctor games. So when you kind of told studios what was working and what was not working with their games, did you think about the integrity when it comes to something like Thor, where you want to kind of keep the story, or was it more about, what the studio thought and kind of, make profits for them?
Yeah, no. Serving the fan base. Yeah, no. Forgive me. I'm from the Midwest. Yeah, no. Everyone's
that's it right there. I heard it. I heard it right there.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So, they really. Gosh, I totally lost myself on the. What was that?
Integrity of games, I think, was the
topic. Yeah, integrity of games.
Right. So the integrity of properties. Yeah, well, a lot of my fans are upset by it. I get it. Us old guys too. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. As much as I'm sort of part of Hollywood, I'm an outsider to it. They never invited me into the club, even though I was there. And yeah, the Hollywood Club has really screwed up a lot of these properties because you get these hot shots in there that are prima donnas. They don't have the skills they sell themselves as having. So all they really know how to do is regurgitate the same garbage, but they go and take these beloved properties, think they know how to improve or change them, and essentially destroy them. And they think that, oh, well, we're broadening this to speak to a larger audience. Well, the truth is that larger audience never really cared. So you might get like a brief spike as that product kind of gets to the box office and they all go to see it. But when you're trying to get those auxiliary sales from other products after it leaves the box office, you've alienated your core fan base. So, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. And I think, with Disney's moves with Star Wars recently, you can see they sort of get that. And even with Marvel, they've sort of have pulled back from it a little bit. They obviously are getting the message that, hey, this isn't working the way we think it should. And I won't talk about some of the political stuff with it. I don't think that playing out politics in some of our beloved stories is a great way to go.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I think that having timeless stories is important. And it's part of how we connect to each other and previous generations. So, things change. But yeah, when I get a property, I always dig too deep, really, into the research, more so than a lot of people I work with. I end up spending a lot of money on research because I try to look at the roots of how stuff happened and the people behind it and the thinking that brought it together so that I can try to get myself into that position to deliver something authentic. So that's, like what I did with my Giant Lands. I grew up loving RPGs. I made a lot as a kid. I've made some as an adult, but I went back to Lake Geneva. I found my boyhood idols, most of which were sort of living in squalor, to be honest, not all of them. But they create this franchise that makes billions of dollars a year now by Hasbro, and they get nothing for it. Now we're in the 50th anniversary of D&D, and none of them are getting championed for it. If anything, they're getting sort of canceled and alienated. And it's affected a great range of them, and it's really sad because here these people, they did it as work for hire, but they were young, they were part of a startup that's changed the world, right? And they don't have a lot to show for it. That's going to make me upset. Hold on a second. My design partner, Jim, who just passed away, was on his last leg. He had to put up GoFundMes to pay for his medical bills. His poor wife, who's now left here, is stuck with him because we just don't care about game people. And that's one reason I sort of went back to it. I started looking at myself. I was like, oh God, I got nothing. Like I made this stuff. People think I'm rich and famous, but I just did some stuff work for hire, right? And at the end of the day, it's not putting food on my table. It's not sending my kids to school, right? It's not even buying me a car, right? And so we see these things sell and they keep selling. My company of heroes I made 15 years ago. I don't know, I'm not going to say it made $1 billion last year, but it made something. And we get nothing. No one that worked on it gets any of that. So that's sort of problematic for me. So yeah, I went back and tried to find these guys and said, hey, we can write this. We can fix this, right? I want you to put you on salary and, to bring the band back together and do this like you used to do it because people love this stuff, right? Frankly, I didn't have the capital to go as far. I was terribly underfunded with it. Did it on personal loans and friends and family. Did some really small Kickstarter raises, but it was enough to keep going. Right. And I have managed to sort of create one product. I wish I could do a lot more. I wish I could hire all of them because for me, it's like losing Walt Disney. Jim was such a wealth of knowledge about how this stuff came to be, the people, the culture. Like I just wanted to pay him to sit and talk all day, right? So why Hasbro wouldn't do something like that with at least the people they pick and choose, perhaps? I don't know. It seems puzzling to me. we're, I guess, a little bit older. I don't want to judge you guys too much, but we live in a time where history is frowned on. I mean, even the word history is frowned on, which is puzzling to me. And, the only way we learn stuff is through history. We all know that history might have incorrect, wrong, or even deceitful stories in it, right? And our job is to sort of go back and try to fix that and to understand it, right? It's this ongoing thing that we're working on. But yeah, we live in a time when a lot of that history is disavowed, and people like to think that we can sort of do something new without looking at it. Well, it's just like the new media stuff. I sort of laugh, these kids that get into the VR scene and they go to a VC and they've, raised $20 million and they think VR just started yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys haven't been around, why don't you go look at what happened before, and you might be able to do a little bit more, right? Because you're going to make the same mistakes. Might as well not reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of the same thing when I get into a franchise, right? You always want to surprise your audience. You always want to give them new things, right, that they maybe didn't expect. But yeah, to some extent, you're doing a service to them, right? You don't want to take it away from them and laugh at them. I mean, back to the Thor thing, Thor: Love and Thunder was really offensive to me because they emasculated Thor so much. They made him a joke. And I thought, like, why would you do this? Like, why would you spend all this money in 2 hours to turn Thor into this, like, rock star boy toy with an attitude problem? He's such a fun hero already, and we all loved him. We all would have gone and seen 3 more Thor movies.
Right.
But then and there, they made Thor not Thor. And at the end, they're bad at providing a service to their audience. And anytime you're engaging with an audience, it's a bit of a dance, right? It's this trust that you build with them that, hey, I'm going to take you to places, right? And it's places you want to go. I might surprise you sometimes, but trust me, in the end, you're going to walk away, happy with where we've gone. And if you're able to do that enough times, people will come back for it. But yeah, if you think that you're going to reinvent stuff every time, at the end of the day, you're just going to alienate folks. And, if I can ramble a little bit more about this, it's sort of business 101, right? They're the dinosaur in the room. They can't invent stuff. So what they do is acquire stuff and kill it.
It's true.
And what did they do? They've killed Lucasfilm and they've killed Marvel, 2 of their major competitors. Gone.
Yeah, Lucasfilms. Yeah.
Not going back.
Yeah. Hey, and so if you could give advice for the younger creators that are doing work for hire, doing freelance work, to be in a situation where they can maybe get a piece of the pie later down the road, what is some advice that you would give them so that they wouldn't be in a situation that some of the creators in the past find themselves in now?
Get out and do it for yourself now. I mean, all my hair is all gray, right? And it took me way too long to kind of realize, hey, if I don't do this for myself, I'm going to end up like all those other folks that have nothing at the end of the day. So, I'm not selling a lot right now of my game, but I own it. It's my property, right? And if it sells next year, I'll get a cut of it, and I'll cut a check for the people that worked on it, which is a way different thing. So I went through some bad junk in a marriage I was in about a decade ago. And when I got out of it on the other side, I decided I was going to make good on old promises I had to myself when I was a kid. Like, I'm going to deliver on that because I owe it to myself. And, so do that now. Like, don't wait. No time is a better time than now, if you follow your dreams and your passions, you'll find other people, because, we're all human beings. And if you like something now, there's other people out there that like it too. You just have to find them. The hard work is what other people don't want to do.
Yeah, that's true.
It's always the hard work.
Yeah,
And it's not easy, and it doesn't get easier. I tell people I think it gets harder because those mountains get bigger, right? And you start to have to treat yourself like an athlete and all this stuff. But so like get out there and try now. It might not work, and that's fine. But when you're younger, you have lower overhead, you have less responsibility. So I try not to say it too much, but I'm sort of one of those guys that's like, I don't really know if you need to go to college anymore. College is
as a professor, this is interesting here. So as a professor, I don't know.
Hey, I love college.
I say the same thing, and when I teach as well, but when I speak to high school students and I tell them that they don't necessarily have to go to college, I'm always advocating for higher education, but not necessarily the higher education ecosystem. I watch the teachers just do this, like the back of the room, they're doing this because it's the opposite of what they're telling all their students. But you're right, you can have success without necessarily having a degree. Again, nothing wrong about further education, and I think that it's one of the things you learn is how to be an adult, how to manage your own time and responsibilities in college. A little bit of some structure, some non-structure, but the information is more and more available for free on the internet.
Right. Yep. Well, no, that's how I run my classroom these days. I mean, I don't want to dog talk other professors I know that still just have students go through tutorials, or we've all had a class like that. Someone whips out the book and they're like, you're going to do this book in this course. Yeah. It's like, how did I pay this money for tuition if you're just going to have me do some tutorials? So we call it lifelong learners, right? I want people that are when they have an idea or they have a need to know something, they're unafraid to go out there and find that information. They're unafraid to jump onto a new platform and try new things, right? That's really sort of my goal. And, some of my students don't like it, but I'm not going to be one of those teachers that runs you through a bunch of tutorials. I want you to express yourself. I'll help you along the way. But I figure you come to college now, really what you're buying is time to pay attention to yourself, right? To your needs, right? And you get these 4 years or 3 years or 5 years, to really pay attention to where you want to go. Part of the problem, I think, in the United States right now is that we have trained these kids to think it's trade school. That, hey, I'm going to college to get a job. No, you're not. You want to get a job, go get a job.
Right.
And I tell you, I learned some of that the hard way myself. I was getting great jobs without any degrees. I went and got 2 degrees. It got a lot harder to get work. And then the people I was reporting to maybe had GEDs, right? So, you sit there like, what is this? Is this a farce? Well, no. It's just you take yourself out of life. You study things, right? I developed as a person. But it cost a lot of money, right? I'm still in a lot of debt from my undergrad. That's still not paid. You have to sort of weigh those things. That's why I just tell people to just do it on the cheap. Do your best to find some place that's going to give you a scholarship. I mean, that's why I went to Detroit. They saw my portfolio and they gave me a little scholarship. And I thought, oh, well, these people like me and it wasn't too expensive at the time. So that's where I went. Right. So I really wish college was just free for all of us, to private schools like mine, that might not work so well. But I really think that's the way it should be, because it should be a right for everyone. So I did a lot of community college myself, though, in the Chicagoland area. Yeah, Oakton. Oakton was some of the best education I ever received. And at the time, credit hours were like $33. And I eventually snowballed those into other degrees. But going to college is not a way. Going to college is not a way to get a job. And I think, those high school educators love to push that. I mean, I can't believe it. I got a kid going into high school now, and they've already been talking to him college and grade school. I'm like, dude, you need to slow down. Why don't you go do something devious? Something devious, anything, please.
One devious thing.
That's funny. It's funny you say that because I learned more about myself and just navigating through social like social aspects of life in college and actually like book stuff. I mean, I got a finance degree, but even a finance degree has nothing to do with what I do now, even though I do finances. So definitely to your point, college is more about time and I think learning about yourself. So there's a way for it to be less expensive or maybe more geared around entrepreneurship because so much more people now are trying to be entrepreneurs, finding how to run businesses. I think schools should do a better job, teaching that aspect.
Amen. Forgive me. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be better at it myself. So I came to business sort of through the other side. My parents are both entrepreneurs, that have tried for years to have their own successful businesses. And I love you, mom and dad. But they've never had a successful exit or anything like that, right? And so it's in me to do it. But yeah, I never had any sort of entrepreneurship training and stuff like that. So I do think that kind of stuff, I know we have a great program at the University of Tampa for it, but every kid should sort of understand how to start and run his own business. It's just sort of the American way. Yeah. It's the way that, we prosper as individuals. And it's the way for us really to get that American dream. Because as we've just talked about, you might go work for a company and get a paycheck, but that's not going to build real wealth for you and your family.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, from an IRS, we don't, nobody loves paying taxes, right? But just like the tax code is set up for entrepreneurs. I mean, a person makes the same amount of money as a business owner compared to a person with a W-2, they're going to actually pocket a lot more money as a business owner because of those write-offs and things that they have inside the tax code. So to your point, you being entrepreneurship, I definitely think is the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, some people get a little upset by it, but yeah, I mean, we are sort of favorable of business, right? But anyone can be in business, right? You just have to go out there and do it.
Yeah, it only costs $70 to register a business in Florida for those of you watching who happen to live in Florida.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Well,
make sure you pay your annual registration fees before May 1st, because otherwise there's a $400 late fee, speaking from experience.
Dude, I'm glad I pulled my business out of Florida. I started my business in Orlando, but yeah, those fees and all that stuff. So yeah, it's based in Wisconsin now, which is, I don't know how much better it is, but Wisconsin's a great place. I love it. And, for me, it just sort of works with the essence of my business, and that's where I built it. But yeah, everyone goes to Delaware. Delaware is a little more expensive, but I guess they have a little bit more protections for businesses there. So
I have a quick question for you. We want to be respectful of your time, but I know you mentioned before, I think that you were working on your own version of a theme park. I know that you have your RPG experience you're building, but can you talk a little bit about that if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of my recent parks, I guess it's not recent anymore. It's 6 years ago now. I opened it. Is it longer than that? 6 years ago. It's called Evermore Park, right? So Evermore Park was this sort of immersive RPG wannabe experience in Utah. I got so excited about making sort of the gaming mecca. I don't know. I like to think I dreamt of it in my youth, but as I was about to say that, I'm like, there's no way I dreamt of this in my youth. But I had a vision for a gaming mecca that sort of came out of it, and I've been driven towards it ever since. And yeah, that for me is Giant Lands. So when I worked, say, on Super Nintendo World, right? People tend to start with a core property. So we had Nintendo and the various properties of Nintendo to work with Miyamoto and the team. In order to bring those to life. And those obviously have pretty large existing fan bases and rules and everything that comes with it. So when I made Evermore Park, we didn't have that. And I was there trying to convince them, this is the real business opportunity. We can make a gaming heaven here. Okay, here's what we need to do. Let's make a box product. Let's make a core game, all this other stuff that, I still don't like to talk about it because no one's delivering it. And that's still my goal, is to deliver on that. And I know that when I'm able to deliver on that, not only is it going to be extremely lucrative, but we'll just love it. Gamers will just love it because it's really a place you can go and kind of realize your ultimate gamer dreams and live them out, whether that's sitting back and watching players that are, really good, like a spectator sport, or you yourself stepping in there, or just immersing yourself in the world. So offer live action, table games, a bunch of other stuff. But they didn't get it. And long story short, so I set on to do it on my own. They couldn't make payroll, and I was like, yeah, forget you guys. I'm going back to Wisconsin. I'm a single parent, so I had a support network up there, and I was like, all right, let's go. So we moved up there, and I got to work on Giant Lands. So let's see. Oh, I don't have. Yeah. So Giant Lands is like a old school box set with 3 books in it, pencils and dice. I actually haven't released it electronically because really I'm trying to get kids offline with it. Like I tell people, it's like my version of Zion and the Matrix. Like I'm trying to get people off the Matrix just for a little bit. Right. And so for me, it started with this core game, which is basically just set in the future. And to be honest, some people are probably listening that'll quote me on this and be like, oh, it's a lie. Well, it's basically you could do whatever you want, right? And the reason we set it in the future is so you could show up as any sort of character. It's based here on Earth, and that would be okay. So if you're really into Mickey Mouse, you come to the park. We won't call you Mickey Mouse, but that's okay. You can't go dressed as Mickey Mouse to Disneyland. You'll get kicked out. They might let you do it at Universal, but probably not. They've gotten a little more friendly to it. So it's sort of antithetical to the model. So yeah, Giant Lands at its core is a role-playing game, but the idea is it's a living, breathing game world. Now, I don't have the park to step inside of yet, but the game itself, I tell people, was like the golden ticket in Willy Wonka, right? And I'm inviting people there to a place in the imagination. The idea was sort of derailed by COVID, just as sort of we started heating up. COVID came into play, and I had to cancel all these events, and I just haven't done it again since. But now's the time to do it. 2024 is the year. And you do small live action events without talking about too much of what I'm planning that are tied to events. Ticketed events, ad events that are live action, sort of like a pocket, a taste, a vignette of what you might experience at a park in the future. Now, I hate to say this because, again, my fans will be like, what, you looked at crypto? I think they sort of knew because some of them got mad at me for it. But yeah, Crypto Fund a couple of years ago had me in line to get a $500,000 grant. I wish it said, no, it doesn't matter. It never showed up. And so if we're $500 million, half of nothing, it never came. But for a minute there, I thought it was we were gonna go to town. So it was $250K in cash, $250K in crypto, and I could do so much with that. And so yeah, we were gonna build it online and basically build. And I have some turnkey solutions because I'm good with that. I know a lot of people. And basically, we had it so that it was a ticketed virtual gaming space that you could enter into, put costuming on your avatar, and game with people in that space. But that money vanished and it didn't happen. So I'm sort of back to just old school RPG. They're books. I'm trying to get people offline. We ran it at DairyCon, which was a convention up in Wisconsin a couple of weeks back, but it was just sort of traditional tabletop stuff. So it's living and breathing now as a traditional tabletop game. So while I'm continuing to feed that and deliver more products in that line for players that only want that style of play, the next steps are the live action play and eventually, yes, a permanent location.
Okay, cool. Well, keep me posted on that. Anything we can do to help and support, we definitely will. We had one question come in, so I wanted to make sure also we answered that. And then certainly, again, want to respect your time here. Dr. Pawar says, how do you look towards increasing cyber threats in the gaming industries? Two-part question. The second part is, what are your thoughts towards generative AI or quantum computing in the future? So
yeah,
the last question happened to be very heavy.
That second one's pretty big. So I'll leave that if I found my Carl Sagan moments. So let's see. So cyber threats. Yeah, I mean, I deal with these myself. I don't think a lot of adults necessarily understand the seriousness of laws associated with cyberbullying now. So those sorts of activities online are just as illegal as stalking and threatening people in real life. The truth is, regulating communities is something that's just been standard. I think Arnaud took off. Oh no, he's still there. So, I worked with Arnaud ages ago to sort of help regulate this sort of stuff in a game where we had actual Nazis that you could play, because it's a World War II based game. So we had people would say some really awful stuff. And yeah, develop systems to sort of regulate that and boot people. A lot of it was community monitoring. I'm not a big fan of automated systems that do it. Sort of, I guess, as we segue into the AI thing, there's so much censorship in AI. Just the other day, I was trying to generate something in Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop's AI tools. It wouldn't let me generate a human knee, right? You can't be like toes or ears. I'm like, this has been flagged. It's like, what? It's just so heavily censored. And that's because of things like automated, regulation of this kind of content. So you really do need humans in there, just because sometimes it's hard and people express themselves differently, and people express themselves in different cultures differently, in different subcultures differently. So people use different words, and computers have a hard time understanding that sort of stuff. So yeah, you need people there, just like, police officers, right?
All right. Well, thank you for answering that question. Before we leave, last thing, let us know where we can support you, how we can support you, other things you have going on this year. It sounds like 2024, you've got a lot of big goals planned. So please share some of that shameless plug opportunity for you.
Yeah, well, I just lost my design partner, and we had a couple of releases I was sitting on. So the biggest things coming up are me getting out the door some new versions of Giant Lands and some adventures that he developed with what we've been sitting on. So actually right now, instead of Kickstarter, just because that takes so much work, I've decided not to do that. And I'm selling pre-orders on my website, wonderfield.games. You have to forgive me. It's a simple website I popped up recently. But basically, you can go pre-order The Adventure of the Broken Road. And by pre-ordering it, you'll get a credit in print and help us make the production. And the goal is to ship it by July. And for me, I don't know, it's sort of the epitome of this stuff, because I can't believe my boyhood idol has passed, and I've got this book that I was working on with him. So I'm just doing my best to make sure it's solid gold, and it'll last into the future and be worthy of his name. So yeah, if, it's what, $38.98, I think, right now to pre-order the adventure. It's at about 70 pages. I'm going to try to get it to 96 pages. I like the big old adventures of TSR of old. And so go check it out, wonderfield.games.
Awesome. Well, best of luck with the launch in July. Please keep me posted. Mario, where can people find and support you?
Yeah, just at Painful Profits, very easy. At PAYNEFUL Profits, because profits can be painful. We make money, we're all happy. So at Painful Profits.
Excellent. And I'm on LinkedIn, Marcus Esports Howard. If any of you are game developers and want to upgrade the immersion or the storytelling of your game, I've joined a team called OVR Technologies. We have a Bluetooth-enabled wearable that's capable of generating thousands of unique scents. We just launched a program, or we're launching a program, where 10 of those companies will get free dev kits from us and documentation, free implementation support. So if your team's too busy to implement Scent, we'll implement it for you, and we'll provide marketing and PR support to celebrate your success. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Other than that, we will see you again next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard to help you level up your wealth. Thank you for your time tonight. We'll see you again soon.
Peace. Thanks, guys. Peace.